So our enemies are seeking cover, but now we need them to fire back so we can actually, have a firefight with them. So we'll set them up to, after they seek cover, they'll turn and face the player, and then they'll take shots at them, and we'll set it up so that they don't shoot the exact same spot every time, but they'll kind of get a radius around your player. Then we'll set it up to where when you get too close to them, they get out of their cover state, and they just try to attack you, because if they're, at a cover point and you're on them, then the cover isn't doing what it's needing to. So let's jump over into ours and we'll take care of that. So the way we're going to do this is we'll go into our enemy blueprint, and we're going to set up 2 more custom events. So we'll add a custom event. This is attacking player, basically the state that handles what to do when they are going to attack the player. And then 1 more custom movement, and we'll call this check move during fire. Basically, when they attack the player, they can either stand still at the spot they're at, or they might move in a direction to kind of be mobile while they're doing that, and this will handle that. So let's set up the check move during fire first, and we'll do a branch right at the very beginning. And for the condition, I'm going to get a weighted bool, or a random bool with weight. So I love this node. I don't know when they added it. It might have been here the whole time, but it is glorious because it has a percentage weighted chance. So the weight is 0.5%. This will fire true 50% of the time. So you get a random chance with the specified weight. Range of weight is 0 to 1, e.g. weight equal 0.6. It'll return a value of true 60% of the time. Now there's a little bit of funkiness with it, but it 95% of the time works 100% of the time. But it's definitely a great tool. So when we check to see if they move during fire, we'll see, are they moving? Okay, so we will add movement input, and it works just like for the player, except for we're going to get the actor forward vector, because I always want them to at least move backwards, so they don't just move side to side, because those control points are kind of by each other. So if they move back a little bit, they should be getting away from their partners, So for the scale value, I always want it to go in reverse, but I want it to alternate in its actual speed. So we'll get a random float, and we'll go from negative 0.35 to negative 1. So the scale value is its max movement speed. So like 50% of whatever your character's movement speed, right now it's 200, would be 100. Or 0.35 would be 35%. You get it. If it's negative, that means it's in reverse from the forward vector, so it'll move us backwards. Now we can do the same thing for side-to-side movement. We'll get our actor right vector, and we will add movement input 1 more time. We'll plug that in here, and then for the scale here, we'll do another random float in range of -1 to 1. Nope, not 0.1. So since it's the right vector, -1 would be left and 1 would be right. So it'll pick a random point and just kind of move back. I mean, it won't serpentine back, but it'll move backwards and either left or right. Sometimes it could get 0 and then just move straight back, but that adds to it a little bit, kind of. But we will need to set this up to loop. So right here at the beginning, when we say this is true, we'll add a boolean. So be moving, and we'll set that to true at the very beginning. Then we'll move everything back a little bit further, and we'll add a branch, plug this in, and as long as this is true, this will continue. So we need to add a delay until next tick to feed back into that branch to keep it checking. Now we're not actually disabling that anywhere, so if we went in to try it right now and we had this event called, they would just perpetually keep moving back. But what we're going to do is when they take all their shots and they've fired at the player as many times as they're going to, we'll disable this as they move to cover. And since we're attacking the player, we want to make sure that they are not crouched. We're going to give them, well, we'll go ahead and call that check movement during fire. Then we're going to give them a target shot account. Target shot count, not account. Target shot count. This is how many times they're going to try and fire at the player. We'll make it an integer. And at the very beginning of our function, we're going to set it to a random integer in range. Now this is basically how many shots they're going to try to take, so we'll say between 4 and 8. So at minimum they'll shoot 4 times, at max 8. We're also going to need an actual shot count, so shots taken, another integer. At the very beginning, we will set that to 0, so that every time we fire through, this gets reset. This will get set to a new amount. This will be reset so that it can actually cycle through and do that many shots. So we are going to need a function for our actual firing at the player. So fire at player, and this is going to be a line trace by channel. The start point is going to be the actor's location, which we may come back and adjust this later on, but for now just at the actor's location. And then the end point is going to get player character. We will get the actor location. It's like I keep trying to spell acorn or something. We're going to get the actor's location, which if we jump over and take a look, the actor's location isn't at the ground, technically. So the mesh, if you see, is at negative, I'm going to set that to negative 90. It's at negative 90, so the center point is actually right there. So that is the actor's location. So if we set this back to negative 90, it's basically at his midpoint, so they're aiming center mass. So we'll take that location, and then we're going to add a little bit of a window around it. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to add. We can split this struct pin, and then we can get a random float in range. And we'll say negative 35 to 35. So it'll take our character's location and about 35 units up or down of that. So it's like this circle is where they're aiming. They're aiming here, but they're going to shoot right around here. And the higher we make this, the more scattered their shot will be. We'll just plug this into X, Y, and Z. Since it's a random, every time it pulls for the X, Y, and Z, it'll get a different value. And then we can plug that into our end. So we'll do the for duration on that one, and let's go check it out to make sure it's working as we intend. So at the very end, we'll call that. I want it to fire multiple times, so let's go ahead and set that up before we test it. Then we'll go back and finish up the functionality there. So we'll move that here. I'm going to add a branch. Yeah, I'll add a branch right at the beginning. We'll make sure that they're not dead. If they're not dead, then we fire at the player, which is do is fire trace. We'll take our shots taken, and we will increment that because they have taken one more shot than they had previously. Then we will see if that is greater than or equal to the target shot count. Add a branch, and if it is, then we will set that we are no longer moving because they are now done with their shot and they're going to go try to seek cover, which we can go ahead and call here. What is it? Request cover point. Yeah, we'll request our cover point and then move to it. But if they are not, if they have not taken more shots than their target shot count, then we'll do a short delay. Whatever you want their fire rate to be, I'm going to leave it at 0.2. And then we'll loop this all the way back down to our dead branch. So just drop these in place. grab that, move it up a little bit, like that. Yeah, good enough. So let's go. Oh, we need to actually call this attack, otherwise it won't. So when we send cover point, we want them to go into combat, seek a cover point, and then at the end, once they're releasing it, we don't want them to just request another one. We'll go to attacking player. Later we'll come back and put a branch to see if they're going to request a cover point or go back to attack the player again. But for now, this should work. So let's check it out. So yeah, they're shooting at us. The cover isn't doing great, but we can add more shots for it. It looks like they're getting their bullet stuck on their cover, so we'll move that up a little bit on their end. Oopsie daisies. So we'll go to the fire at player, get the actor location, and we'll just add, since it's the same thing for them, this is about the 0 point, so it's firing from here, but when they're actually shooting, it'll be about here. So we'll just go ahead and add 20 on the Z. Wait. Hang on, let me add a scene component real quick. You don't have to follow along with this part, I just gotta check math stuff. Attach to the mesh. Yeah, okay, so I can delete that now. I just wanted to make sure that that would mean going up. So yeah, we'll add 20 to it, and then there's our start. Now we'll check it again. Yeah, now that it's getting over their cover at least. And if they die, they should stop shooting. But it looks like they haven't. They're still doing it. So we need to actually cancel out all of their seeking cover, attacking player. Should be canceling it out down here. For the firing, at least. But if true, we'll check to see if they're dead. If not, then we continue seeking our cover. And up here, after they're releasing their cover, we'll do a branch to see if they're dead before we tell them to go attack the player. Now let's check it out. He still shot at us. Was that him shooting? It looks like it stopped. I'll know in a minute. Unless you get in the way. Oh, I know the problem. We need to actually update our applied damage, event any damage. Then we need to tell them to actually make it dead. Instead of doing it down here when they're launching the enemy, we'll just do it right here at their actual death function. So yeah, there we go. Now there is something else we need to do. So let's say I'm covering right here. They're moving. They wouldn't really go into cover right here. That wouldn't make sense since I'm right there. We can add a detection radius around them. So we'll add a sphere collision set to about 400 units. 3 or 400 seem to be pretty good, but basically if the player is in this, then they'll cancel out their cover seeking and just go into attacking the player. So with that sphere selected, let's go down to our onComponent begin overlap. We're going to get the other actor and see if it is equal to the player character. we'll do a branch. And if it is, then we'll call a do once, just so that we don't, overlap and it just keeps registering over and over again. And we'll do basically a cancel out. So up here on our firing at player, oh no, actually at our seeking cover, because that's where we're going to do it. We'll create a custom event called release cover early, basically a cancel out. And we'll just go right there into our release cover point, tell it we're not crouched, we're actually going to attack the player now if we're not dead. And then we'll just call that down here on begin overlap, release cover early. And then in order to undo this, we'll do another overlap event, but this one will be on end overlap with our sphere. We'll copy this equal, see if the other actor is equal to player character, and if so, do a small delay. We'll say 0.5 seconds, and then we'll reset this. That way it gives it a little bit of a space barrier between them and the player, so it's not just like they're running away, and then just it'll prevent them from having too much of a hiccup. This will also, if they're in cover and I run up, then they'll jump up from it and try to get away. Or if they go for a cover point, he'll slide backwards on his heels. That was weird. Alright, so when we release cover, we'll just go ahead and say that crouched is false, which it should be doing up here, but apparently not. Sometimes these things need a little bit of a hand in certain areas. So he was going for that cover point, but then he stopped because I was in range. Let's see, if I'm crouched here, like I'm using it, then they run up. He runs up, tries to get a point, but then he can't, so he runs back away. Seems to be doing all right. Well, one issue we might have, and I didn't think about it till just now, is once they overlap and they do their attacking player, then they're going to try to seek cover, but if they're still close to the player, it won't register its begin overlap event. So what we'll do is right here on our begin overlap, if it is the player, we'll add a boolean that is be near player. And on begin overlap, we'll set that to true, and on end overlap, we'll set that to false. That way, at the end of their attacking state, if they're not dead, they're no longer moving, but if they are near the player, then if they're not, they can request a cover point, but if they are, then they'll just go back into their attacking player function. So that way, and let's jump in. So they run up, he's covering. Maybe the 400 isn't big enough. Alright, well let's go to our enemy, and at the on success, when we send the cover point and they move to it, we'll add a branch here to see if they're near the player, and if they're not, then they can go into the crouched. So we'll add that here, and if they are, then we'll just go ahead and bypass everything and go into the release cover point. So he jumps up, tries to do his attacking thing. He's running over, he's attacking. He can't get a cover point because he's still close, so he moves away. Now I move away. I moved far enough away, he's going for a cover point. There is a little bit of a hiccup, it looks like. Seems to be what they're backing up. We want them to back away from the player, so when they're moving, we'll bump this up to like negative 0.75 to 1 in our check move during fire. So he won't speak fire. He should be going back into his attacking player. I got close enough. I guess I got out of range. Probably be easier to see if we actually enabled the view of that. Now he's covered, but he's up because I got close and he's trying to get away. So they do try to get away. They're just not very reliably moving, but they are at least trying. Oh, right. It's on a chance. They might not get that call. It might not. Let's bump this up to just 1, just so it always registers. That's their issue. So now they will always move back or to the side. And then if we take cover, he's sliding. We'll fix that. Now if I stay behind their cover and they try to run up to it, eventually when they do, he'll stop because he realizes he's too close. But it is glitching right there at the radius. That must be right at the radius of it. What I think is happening is he's bumping into it, but then trying to push away, but then it undoes. So it says he's not near the player anymore, and then it's releasing the cover early, but then he's trying to get to it. So let's bump this up to 2 seconds. Oh, it's actually set this in front of that. And maybe that'll make the difference we need. Over here. Still kind of glitching in his movement. But they're at least trying. But they'll be able to give us... You wouldn't want to get that close anyway regularly. You'd want to be able to be over like this. So let's try it without running up on them and make sure it's working in that capacity better. So yeah, they're still doing all right. And if I get close, they do try, but you'd pretty much be close to killing them there anyway. Alright, that'll work. Now we need to do our impact effects. So when they fire at the player, we'll do a break, hit result, we'll add a branch to it to see if we actually hit anything. If we did, we'll check to see if the actor is valid. So if we have a hit and the actor is valid, then we're going to check to see if the actor is our player character, because we'll spawn a different particle effect if they are, and play a different sound effect. So get player character. If it is valid, then we are going to spawn emitter at location. The location will be our hit location, and the rotation will be our impact point. It'll automatically convert it to a rotation from X vector. But for the emitter template, we can do a select using that, whether it's the player or not. If it's not the player, then we'll just do our, metal impact. I'm going to go for the small one. And if it is, I don't have any blood splatter effect, but there is this impact wood. It was kind of interesting. We can also do play sound at location. The location is, again, our hit location. And we'll do another select using that same bool to see if it is our player character. If it's not, that means they're hitting a wall or something, so we'll do rifle impact. I don't have a space bar right now, so rifle impact surface. And if it is the player, then we'll do rifle impact body. We'll set that volume multiplier down to about 0.5 just to test it. Let me check something real quick. Let me turn my desktop audio up just a little bit so I'll be able to hear it. Not sure if it was coming through. Now let's check to see. Oh, our character's body does not register hits. So we'll go to his mesh. We don't want to use the capsule because then if he's crouched, this is still high, so it wouldn't work as well. We'll set his collision preset to custom and make sure he is blocking visibility channel. Whoa. Now, if they hit 100% of the time, it would probably whittle through your health real quick. So what we'll do is we'll go back here. And we will add a branch right here. And this one we'll use a weighted bool again, random bool with weight. So if they do hit something, we'll check to see, we'll give it a chance to not hit. And if it's true, then we'll do our stuff. If it's not, it just won't do anything. It'll be like they missed completely. Ooh, we might need to increase that chance. But you can see sometimes that line is hitting and it's not registering anything. We can fudge the numbers a little bit too. So at their first shot, in their fire player, we'll promote this to a variable called hit chance. And on their first shot, when they first jump up, when we're resetting everything like they've taken 0 shots, we'll back this up and we'll set their hit chance to something low. That way when they take their first shot, you get kind of a warning. So let's say 15% of their first shots will hit. Then after they take their shot, we can set the hit chance to something else. So we'll set it back to 0.5 so they have a better chance to hit once they've gone through this. So they got a chance to hit us, but it's not, if you notice when the lines hit, it's not always spawning that. Those emitters or playing the sound. Which is good. Does look like they're getting a little hung up. Sometimes they're confused on what to do. I think that's the on fail event for one of their movements. So what we can do is on their on fail, which for some reason calls very regularly, even if they're moving. If you use this, sometimes you'll notice that they'll kind of spaz out. We can put it on a delay. We'll say 5 to 10 seconds, somewhere in there. And if they fail getting where they're going in, we'll give them 10 seconds. So if they fail, then they'll just go into their release cover. And then they'll try to move and attack the player. That should fix that. But let's give it a shot just to make sure. I know this one's kind of a long one, I'm sorry. It's just when you get to these enhanced features, it takes a bit, you know? I think it's he's trying to move backwards, but he can't. Ugh. I love physics bodies, because you can just knock them against the... Actually, it seems to be something over here. Something over here is what's wrong. Maybe these orange points are too big. Maybe if we narrow them up a little bit, that might help. Another thing we can do is when they're running to a cover point, they might not be looking at the player. They probably go ahead and start looking in the direction they're traveling. So at the event send cover point, right before we move the character to it, let's back this up a little bit. We'll get the AI controller. The controlled actor is the self, this enemy blueprint, and then we're going to clear their focus. This will make it to where they're not focused on the player anymore, they're focused more on the direction they're moving. Which will make it more like they're trying to make sure they're going in the right direction. I think part of the issue is that RVO avoidance. He's also jumping up and then not looking at the player. So what we'll do is on our event attacking player, we'll get the AI controller self, and then we'll set its focus once it goes into attack. Because oh yeah, we're only setting it one time, so it's getting confused. But we'll set it every time they go to attack. We'll get the player character and then plug that in here. And then now every time they call that attack function, they are calling it once, it looked like, and then he'll get up and attack. He should peek out. Yeah, they're running away and seeking cover. He keeps running back to the same one, so he's hard to tell. They jump up, And they'll turn. Yeah, he's turning. Let's see, you're running to cover. Will you jump up and yep, face the player? And then you two to back away. Let's disable the RVO and just see how that helps. Trial and error, trial and error. That's why I like RVO, because it stops them from doing things like that. And if those barriers were a little bit smaller, I bet they'd fly over them. But if they got too much smaller, then it wouldn't make sense. So it looks like it's all working out decently for what we're trying to do. We'll go ahead and disable our draw debug type on the fire. I am going to re-enable the RVO avoidance just to make them stop running into each other. Now, there is one more issue you may notice, is they will actually shoot and kill each other because their fire trace registers visibility, and so do they. So they might shoot each other and kill each other on accident, but it's also kind of funny. So I'm not sure if that's something y'all would want fixed. Because it kind of makes sense, like, if you accidentally are not paying attention to where you're shooting, then you would accident. That's what friendly fire, you know. Ah, he went over. Awesome. Seems to be this one that's messing with them. So maybe these control points are a little too close or too far. I'll try moving them out away from each other and away from the wall a little bit. They only get hung up over here. It doesn't seem like they do very much over here. But we'll go ahead and adjust our fire event again. What we need to do now is actually play a sound effect and a RVO avoidance. I'm going to set this to about 25. Maybe that'll help. But we need to play an emitter at their weapon and spawn a sound effect when they fire so we can hear the bullets even if we don't hear the impact around us. So we're going to spawn emitter at location. The emitter is our rifle muzzle flash, and the location will get our weapon, get the socket transform, and the socket is called muzzle flash. The M and the F are capitalized. To double check that, you can always open your assault rifle and go to its skeletal structure. We'll split this pin and in the location and rotation. And then we'll play sound at location. Remember, the play sound at location comes in handy because the spawn sound will create a sound actor in the world, whereas the play sound will just fire it. Since it's a bullet and it's not going to be something like a fire that would, like a campfire or something, it'll work out. Set the volume multiplier to about 0.5, and then the attenuation settings we can set to be weapon shot, because they already come with some pretty good attenuation stuff. We might have to go tweak it, but it seemed to work pretty well. And this will be the rifle fire, rifle raise, rifle reload, rifle whip, rifle nay, rifle fire. Right there. So now we'll see the muzzle flash and that even if they miss. So they'll all run to cover. They are getting hung up on each other a little bit. But if we bump it up too high, it seems like they push each other outside of good zones. So maybe it was at 35, then I put it to 25. Let's go to 30. We'll see how that works. Then again, it might just be that there's too many people in this encounter. Like he's stuck, but it looks like he's trying to move to a point, but he can't figure out how to get to it. So we will come back and retool the AI a little bit, but they are at least firing back now. Maybe our arena is just too constricted. Shouldn't be, but you know, we'll double check it later. But they are firing back, and they're making sure that they're not too close to us to seek cover. So we'll save everything, and we'll double check. Might increase their fire rate. So 0.15 on that. Just for a little bit more. Maybe for this area, there's just too many of these guys, so we'll just take a couple of them out. And then spread them out. Seems like they're doing good now. Except for when they overshoot and then come back to it for some reason. But what I think is happening is his capsule must be somewhere right here. So it's still registering. Alright, I get it. It's still registering uh the movement update. So when they die, set their capsule collision. Is there a navigation option? Well, nah, we can't do that. I'll figure that out and we'll update that later on. But for now, we got our enemies firing back, so now we can start doing some tweaking, just some gameplay mechanics, make sure it's all working out. So I'll see y'all in the next one to get started on some more refinement stuff. See y'all then. Sorry this one was so long. Bye.